So, it seems like Final Fantasy has a problem, which is a shame to me because it's actually one of the last gaming franchises that I anticipate and actively root for. Gone are the days of me hoping for a new Assassin's Creed to be decent, or a new Battlefield to grab my attention because EA and Ubisoft are doo-doo garbage and can't make a solid functioning game to save their lives anymore. If you're asking yourself, Cloud, why do you like Final Fantasy so much? Is it the story? Is it the world? Is it the attractive characters? Is it the plot? Is it the atmosphere? Is it the attractive characters? Is it the developers and the history of the franchise? Or is it the attractive characters? What if I told you it was none of those things? Well, some of those things. What if I told you it was the freedom the franchise has that makes me like it so much? Not having to stick to one story or a group of characters throughout game to game, being able to switch genres, whether it be sci-fi, classic fantasy, steampunk, or a more modern look. The freedom to be able to do these things sets it apart in my eyes and gets me really excited for each game going forward. But recently there seems to be a problem. While the games are releasing currently aren't awful, the sales, however, keep going down. There seems to be a disconnect between the broader audience in this franchise that I personally think are an issue, and that may be a cause of the problem. First problem I wanted to talk about was the marketing. Usually I judge trailers based on how many non-fans it catches the eyes of. Let me tell you, the first trailers to Rebirth in 16 compared to games like God of War and God of War Ragnarok or any FromSoft game that's come out recently, it's not even close. Whenever I watch a God of War trailer or a trailer from a FromSoft game, they look like movie trailers. They have epic scenes, awesome music in the background, and by the end of it you feel like you really want to pick up that game and play it right there and then. But seeing Rebirth reveal trailers, reactions, and seeing 16's trailers, reactions, it wasn't even close to the amount of intrigue it brought to those franchises. And let me just say, I'm a new gen Final Fantasy fan. Your boy Cloud is what you'd call a zoomer. So my first entry to the series was Final Fantasy 15. And Final Fantasy 15, as a kid, I saw the E3 trailer and immediately wanted to play the game. I don't know what happened between 15 and now Rebirth. I don't know who was doing the trailers back then, but didn't need to hire them again. 15's trailer was shot extremely well, very cinematic, very cool looking, very attention grabbing compared to its later games. The marketing for 15 was amazing, despite how you feel about 15, despite it coming out mediocre. The one thing that game had that was amazing was its marketing. It was able, through its marketing, to grab the attention of people who weren't fans of the franchise before, which is why it's one of the highest selling Final Fantasy games in the franchise. Seeing the E3 trailer, seeing Noctis fight crazy looking enemies hanging off the side of buildings and ships while the orchestra is playing in the background had me hyped, and I knew almost nothing about the franchise at the time. They gained an entirely new fan just because that trailer banged so hard. Matter of fact, let me give you a comparison between 15's trailer and Rebirth's trailer. Wow, look at the environment. Holy shit. Oh my god, look at the movement. Look at the physics. That water? Holy shit. Okay, we're walking. Damn, this looks cool already. Ooh, Sephiroth, what the fuck? What's going on? Absolute fucking mayhem. Brain stimulant. What the fuck is even going on? Holy shit, look at the movement, look at the teleportation. Can't wait for this game to come out. What's even happening right now? Okay. Wow, look at this environment. Cool. Interesting. Look at this set piece. You can teleport on ships? Assassin's Creed style climate? Bro, hell no, is that a boss? Oh my god. Give me this game right now. Holy shit, is that who I think it is? Let's see. Holy shit, that's Zack. What the fuck? I wonder how this game's gonna turn out. Now that he's back, what the fuck? Okay. Bro, you could teleport on buildings and fight people on buildings? Yeah. This is game of the year right here. Give me it now. Yeah, I think you guys kind of understand, what I'm talking about. I mean, look at them side by side and tell me which one would grab the attention of a new gamer or a new audience. Left one looks like super fun, I want to play now. Right one looks like a walking simulator. And obviously to me, as a fan, I look at the one on the right and I go, oh my god, Sephiroth, Cloud walking together, and I get hyped like, oh my gosh. But to a person who absolutely knows nothing about the franchise, this means nothing. The more substantial trailer is the one on the left for people who know nothing, and that's just the point I'm trying to get across. Now, I'm not saying Rebirth didn't have better trailers in the future or 16s were bad by any means, but compared to the competition and what Square Enix is aiming for, it wasn't really close. I mean, hell, it wasn't even close to 15 like I was saying. Another issue besides trailers that I seen was, at least I saw this especially with 16, they like to drop the reveal trailer and then be silent for months. That completely kills any hype and momentum that game had. If the game is that far out, you might as well just not drop have a reveal trailer until you're ready to actually start pumping out that marketing. The 16 trailer dropped, months of silence. I completely forgot that game existed until one day another trailer dropped. I'm like, oh yeah, they announced 16. I was completely surprised. I was like, I can't believe I forgot about this considering how much I actually like the franchise. And if I forgot about it, someone who's actively excited whenever new Final Fantasy content comes out, imagine a person who doesn't even know anything about the series. So yeah, I hope with their new iteration, whether it be 9 remake, I've heard that was in the work, or whether it be Final Fantasy 17, I hope when they do the reveal trailer, whether it be through screenshots, whether it be the developers communicating with the fans or doing interviews, that they keep the pressure on, and as the game gets closer to release, they intensify that pressure. I hope we don't have another situation where they go silent for months. I hope they learn their lesson this time around. Another problem I wanted to talk about was the combat system. In my opinion, this franchise really needs to stop changing combat system every single game. I wouldn't be as opposed to this if it were working and it was efficient, but recent games have shown otherwise. When you have to dedicate a large chunk of development time, money, and resources to making an entirely new combat system every single iteration, rather than just putting that development time into much more important things such as fun and meaningful side quests, Final Fantasy 16, and more characters and story writing. I think they should just choose a combat style, see if the community likes it, and then build upon that. I think they should choose a combat system going forward, whether it be 15, 16s, 7 Remake, or 7 Rebirth, and stick to that going forward for the next 2 or 3 iterations of the Final Fantasy franchise. If I were Square Enix, I'd be really looking at Rebirth's combat system. Not only was it widely praised, you had gaming studios literally coming out and saying how they used Remake and Rebirth's combat system as inspiration for their game. When was the last time a Final Fantasy game even had that happen? In my opinion, they can even go back and maybe if they want to retry 15 or 16. For me, I thought 15 was a cool concept that didn't get flushed out the right way, and that was really disappointing. And then I felt like 16's combat kind of got stale by the end of the game, and they could easily grab any of their previous franchises' combat systems and just be like, let's do this but better. Because 15 I thought had a really cool concept, teleporting on walls, teleporting on airships, teleporting into enemies to do a special attack. I thought that was a really cool concept. And younger me didn't know that Final Fantasy changed combat every single iteration. So younger me was playing 15 and was like, oh my god, I can't wait for the next game when they actually improved this combat, only for it to completely get scrapped for a new one. And I was very disappointed. And I still am disappointed. So I really hope they choose one going forward, and when they feel like they can't be innovative anymore with it, then they scrap it and move on to a new one. I know there's been a lot of conversation about Final Fantasy going back to turn-based. I'm not completely opposed to the idea, but however, I don't personally feel that the mainline franchise should be turn-based anymore, especially if Square Enix aren't really committed to it, which they have shown and through interviews that they really aren't. It seems like they talk about turn-based as if they just used it at the time because that was the best way to convey their story they wanted to tell, but now it's clear that they just don't want to ever go back to that, which is kind of a harsh reality that I think people in the Final Fantasy community are just going to have to accept. I do think that Square Enix should still make turn-based games, whether it be Final Fantasy or not, to keep that audience satisfied, but you know, Square Enix has shown time and time again they're not the best at making decisions. For example, instead of giving us cool Final Fantasy spin-offs in between Final Fantasy games or cool turn-based games in between Final Fantasy games, they decided to give us the Avengers game. They decided to give us everyone's game of the year, Forspoken, and they're like, you know what, to top it all off, let's buy some NFTs. So in terms of decision making, I do not have a lot of trust in Square Enix. And like I said, personally, I don't want them for mainline games at least to go back to turn-based, just because I see the goal and what they want to do. They want Final Fantasy to be their groundbreaking game, their big grandiose type games, and I feel like them doing turn-based or Final Fantasy again would be completely opposite of what they actually want to do. I know people bring up games like Persona and Baldur's Gate and their success and go, maybe Square seeing their success will make them want to do another turn-based game, but I don't think so. Like I said, I think the best option that turn-based fans should hope for is just maybe Final Fantasy games that are outside the main line. Realistically, that's really what you should hope for. Or I'd say Atlas does this really well with games like Metaphor, where, you know, in between Persona games, Atlas gives us games like Metaphor to keep us entertained, to keep us, you know, fed. And I'm hoping Square does the same at some point so everyone could be happy. Like I said, Final Fantasy 15 was my first entry into the franchise, and when I was younger, the reason why I even was completely sold by Final Fantasy 15 was because it wasn't turn-based. People were like, oh, it's one of the first action combat Final Fantasies, and I was like, oh, perfect, this is my time to jump in. Now, I think that's also part of the reason why I lean more towards, like, at least for the mainline franchise, why they shouldn't do turn-based. And that's just personal bias outside of their own ambitions, because it's clear that Square wants to make Final Fantasy their God of War or their Dark Souls type franchise. And I don't mean like in gameplay, I just mean like in their grandiose feeling and how they pull in audiences. So yeah, those are the main two problems that I've seen personally. Another problem that is a little smaller, so I won't make it into its own section, is the numbering. Since 15 was my first Final Fantasy, I saw the number 15. It was immediately like, should I not jump in? But because it was marketed so heavily that you could jump into this game without playing any of the others, it made me feel comfortable going into that game. But I will say having a numbering system that's that big at this point is a barrier to entry for new players. I feel like the franchise that did it the best was Resident Evil in their recent game. I don't think people realize how smart Resident Evil as a franchise was to start adding its numbering system into its name with 7 and Village. They basically did a reboot of their franchise without actually having to do so. I think the next Final Fantasy entry should absolutely positively do this. People hear and see a big number attached to a franchise and immediately disassociate because they feel like they missed out or have to catch up on years of games, not realizing that all the games are separate experiences. Imagine not having to hammer home every single Final Fantasy every single time in the marketing you don't have to play the last ones. Imagine just being able to release the name and not have to have some big explanation behind it each and every single time. That'd save you some marketing. In conclusion, I really hope this series does well. Like, honestly, really. I can shit on Square all day, trust me, I can. They make it extremely easy to. If I really wanted to, I could be putting up LeBron numbers on them. But I'm not going to this video. This video is more going to be uplifting and hopeful, and just putting it out there that I really hope that they really hit it out the park with their next one. Because this franchise, when done well, is extremely fun. Some of the most fun I've had playing a game in a while. So whatever team is working on the next Final Fantasy, hey, I'm rooting for you. Don't disappoint me, please. I really thought Final Fantasy 16 would have been that leap in the right direction. Don't get me wrong, it was a step in the right direction, especially after 15. Maybe my expectations were too high. I thought it was going to be a leap in the right direction. I mean, hell, even my first video is me talking about how I hope that game was going to do well because of my expectations for it. And while it didn't live up to my expectations, it still was a solid game all around. So I really hope their next one does better. So yeah, we'll be talking about Final Fantasy in the future because it's a franchise I actually like. And I'll also be talking about other games and other shit that's going on. So if you like what you saw today, subscribe, hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it. Helps keep this channel going. So yeah, that's all I want to talk about. So yeah.